Hello and welcome back to another live edition of the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast brought to you by 90 Min. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition of the podcast, we're going to be discussing the links with Renato Sanches to Arsenal. We're going to be talking a little bit about Maurizio Pochettino and his potential move to Manchester United. We'll also be rounding up the weekend's action, as well as me giving you some information and some details on how you can win an Arsenal shirt of your choice. And of course, Arsenal have three beautiful kits out this season. We've got the red one, the home one, of course, the slightly off yellow coloured away one that we wore at Anfield at the weekend, although that's not a particularly fond memory. And of course, the blue shirt, which is a bit of a throwback to an old kit, an old favourite. So we're going to be giving you the chance to win one of those shirts, a shirt of your choice, to say thank you for all the support that you guys have shown the podcast over the last couple of years. We are approaching the third anniversary, I think, of the podcast. Yeah, third anniversary, January 2022. It'll be the third anniversary of when we really got going with this podcast. So I do want to say thank you. Therefore, in December, we're going to do this giveaway. So the winner will be picked at random on the 3rd of December. And to enter, all you need to do is head over to Twitter, check out at Chronicles_AFC, look at our pinned tweet and follow the instructions there. And as I say, you can win yourself a shirt of your choice. We're not just giving away one, but we're giving away two. So I look forward to seeing plenty of you enter. And one of our special guests on Friday, the 3rd of November, will be picking the winners at complete random. So looking forward to that. Right, let's start off by discussing the links with Renato Sanches. He's a player that Arsenal were heavily linked with over the summer. A deal never materialized, but I think a lot of us were singing from the same hymn sheet with regards to this one. Fitness seems to be a major concern for Renato Sanches. And let's start off with where this story stems from. Let's start off with why these reports have resurfaced again. And then we'll talk a little bit about why Renato Sanches, to me, doesn't feel like a smart move, doesn't feel like the right player. So if we just head over to football.london, where the story was written up, there were some comments that Renato Sanches made when talking to L'Equipe, the French outlet. He was discussing whether there was interest in him. He was discussing the fact that he feels a lot more mature now and that he's ready to move to a big club, whereas in the past he wasn't. He joined Bayern Munich, didn't he, at a very, very young age. It didn't really work out. He went on various loan moves before finally landing at Lille, where he seems to be, finding his feet again and starting to show people what he is capable of. But this is what Renato Sanches had to say when he was asked about the transfer speculation. He said, "Who is interested in me? Maybe Milan and Arsenal are interested, but I don't know. I talked to my agent. I know which clubs are calling and which are not, but now I can't tell you. But I know I'm ready. If it happens, I'll see what's best for me." So Renato Sanches saying he doesn't want to tell people who the clubs are interested, but then naming both Milan and Arsenal suggests that there was some interest in the past, or at least conversations had taken place. He said he wasn't going to reveal the clubs that were contacting his agents, but he named a couple, and one of them was Arsenal. Look, I don't doubt Renato Sanchez's talent. I don't doubt his ability. I think he's a really, really talented player. But the big red flag for me with Renato Sanches has always been around the player's fitness. And I can't get behind the idea of bringing in a player that is such a flight risk when it comes to fitness. We're bemoaning our luck at the moment with Thomas Partey being injured constantly and then coming back from injuries and not looking, anywhere near as sharp as we know he can. We're worried about how we're going to cope without Granit Xhaka now for a long period of time. And we're wondering if he's going to be back in time for the African Cup of Nations, where we're definitely going to lose a couple of midfield players. All of that stuff just says to me, steer clear of Renato Sanches. But I want to make it clear. It's not because I don't think he's talented. It's not because I don't think he's a good player. It's not because I don't think he has something to offer. It's just we can't have too many of these players in the team. We can't be relying and hanging our hat on players who just cannot stay fit. Look, Kieran Tierney falls into that category as well. This is not me having to go solely at our central midfielders. When players constantly break down and constantly get injured, you end up in a position as a manager where you simply cannot hang your hat on them. And if you do, you will struggle and then you will inevitably fail. Build your team around people that are constantly available. Look, every player picks up knocks, every player picks up injuries. Some players, they pick up injuries inflicted by challenges from opponents, and that can't be helped. Some players will pick up muscle strains because they're fatigued. But there are some players who just constantly pick up the same types of injuries. And those players are the ones that you need to steer clear of. And that's my thoughts and my he is somebody who, we've got, we definitely have a need for a player in that position. I don't think that anybody would deny that. I definitely think that midfield is the number one area in which we have to do business in January. We'll come on to do a show a little bit closer to the window about the priorities and the needs of the team going into that window. But I just don't know that Renato Sanches is the answer. And again, just want to reiterate the point. It's nothing to do with his talent, purely to do with his fitness record. And if we have a look at his fitness record, I know people talk about him being an injury prone player, but I don't think people realize how serious this kind of issue is with Renato Sanches. You look at that. I mean, the word that jumps out to you on that page is hamstring. How many hamstring injuries? You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just 6 that I can see. You got thigh problems, muscular problems. We don't know what those were specifically, meniscal injuries. And these are injuries that have kept him out for periods of time. We're not talking about 1 week here and there. We're talking about, look, 47 days, 26 days, 24 days, 85 days, 28 days. You just simply cannot, in my opinion, go out and bring somebody in to cover somebody who's also got a fitness issue, who's then going to come in and have the same issues. It's cutting your nose off to spite your face. It's not the way that I would be looking at dealing with the Thomas Partey issue, which I do believe is an issue. Like I've said it time and time again. People have said I've been really, really critical of Thomas Partey, and that at times I've been unfair on him. Look, when I do acknowledge that when his performances have been below par, it's more often than not because he's not at the races physically. But part of being a great player is being available. Part of being a great player is taking care of yourself. It's frustrating with Partey because, as we know, before he came to Arsenal, his fitness record was really, really good. But now we're in a place where this is becoming an ongoing issue. It happened throughout last season. He's already broken down twice this season, came back into the team at Anfield, looked miles off of the pace. So I am worried about it. And I just don't feel like Renato Sanches, despite his, comments regarding Arsenal, is a suitable option, a suitable player to come in and help us with that issue. I feel like he'll only add to it. And that's a shame because I do think he's got talent. And I think a club maybe not in such a desperate situation when it comes to the center of midfield might be tempted to take a gamble on him. You look at Renato Sanches, his profile on Transfermarkt, and he's valued at around about £27 million, which to some clubs isn't really a splash in the water. But I think for Arsenal, not that the money's the biggest deal, it's just that it's so important that we get this buy right, because whoever it is, I think, is going to have to play quite a significant role. I mean, nobody could have foreseen Granit Xhaka's injury. He had a pretty clean injury record and then bang, hit at the start of this season and out for a long period of time. But we do know that Thomas Partey is going to have these problems. And we know that Sambi Lokonga, based on recent evidence, just isn't quite there yet. Not there yet to be playing week in, week out. So Arsenal need to address that area. They need to add to that area. They need to add further strength in depth. I think that Mohamed El Neni is going to be leaving the club pretty sharpish. But even with him there, we're still quite short in that area. And with question marks still over Maitland-Niles as well, it's imperative that we do business in the centre of midfield, just not Renato Sanches. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. I'd love to hear from you guys and hear your thoughts on Renato Sanches. Let's see what you guys make of the of the rumors, of the talks, of the reports? How would you feel about Arsenal taking what would undoubtedly be a bit of a gamble on Renato Sanches? Let's have a look in the comments now. Afsar says no to Renato Sanches. Just going back to the competition, Mint says gutted, banned from Twitter. Mint, what you can do is you can email me and I'll pop you in the draw. The tweet says that you need to be subscribed to the channel and need to retweet it. I know if you don't have Twitter, that's fair enough. So just email me, chroniclesafc@gmail.com, and I will pop you into the competition as well. Marshall says Renato Sanches is so slept on, bro. I would love to see him at Liverpool. He would be the best replacement for Gini. Yep, of course, Liverpool, another club rumored to be interested in the Portuguese midfielder. But, I think Liverpool have got their fair share of injury-prone midfielders already. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Naby Keita. I'm not sure that I'd be going near him if I were Liverpool either. GB says, not this injury-prone. It's muscle injuries, mind you. Renato Sanches again. He never plays more than 20 games a season in the pace and physicality of the English Premier League. Signing him is a ridiculous risk. Omar says he would take Sanches. Vishal says, why are we going for Renato Sanches when Bruno Guimaraes is right there? Bissouma is also still available. Mint says there's better and more reliable out there. Sam agrees with me. We can't afford to have another injury-prone player. Nikomo says hell to the no to Sanches. What else have we got? Pretty much. Pretty much the general consensus is that we need to stay away from a player with the fitness issues that Renato Sanches has had throughout his career. But I think there's an acknowledgement that this guy is talented. Just don't think he can be relied upon. But there we go. That's one of the big stories doing the rounds with regards to Arsenal at the moment. And what I am finding this season is with the lack of European football, we do see a lot more of these stories creeping up during the months where the transfer window isn't open. I wonder if it's people trying to look for something to write. I wonder if it's, I do wonder how valuable this information, or reliable, I should say, this information is. But it was worth touching on because the reported interest from Arsenal was pretty much confirmed by the player himself. This wasn't a journalist, or a dodgy publication coming out with Arsenal are in for Renato Sanches. The player himself mentioned Arsenal as a potential suitor, and therefore I felt that we needed to have a little bit of a chat about it. But we did a bit of an in-depth talk on Renato Sanches during the summer. And my thoughts on the player haven't really changed. I still think he's very talented. I still think he's got a lot of ability. I still think he could go on to perform at a much higher level and at a much higher profile club than Lille. But injuries will hold him back. And that's been the problem with a lot of players over the years. We've seen some of our own, Jack Wilshere being the prime example of a player who's incredibly talented, but injuries prevented him fulfilling his potential. Abu Diaby, another one. So this is not uncommon. This is not unheard of. It's just whether as a football club you feel like it's a risk worthwhile taking. And I would argue that given our lack of strength in depth in that particular area of the pitch, it's not an area we can be pissing around in. It's not an area we can be taking unnecessary risks in. Right, let's move on and let's talk about the reports linking former Spurs manager Maurizio Pochettino with the Manchester United job. Now, of course, we talked on the gas tank over on 90 Min about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer sacking, and I'll just share my thoughts on that briefly with those of you who haven't seen that or won't see that. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had to go. Manchester United, I think, have taken the right decision. The problem is that they've taken that decision. The problem for them, mind you, is that they've taken this decision, in my opinion, 2-3 weeks too late. Should have done it a few weeks ago. Probably would have landed Antonio Conte if they had. I'm told by people close to Manchester United, or I say close, who report on Manchester United, who follow the club a lot more closely than I do, that of course Antonio Conte wasn't an option, that Antonio Conte wasn't somebody that they'd like to see come in, that he doesn't fit the Manchester United way, etc., etc. But I just find it hard to believe that they would overlook such a talented manager, or that they could overlook a talented manager without it screaming of incompetence. I think that's what it is with United. I think a lot's been made of Ole and his limitations, if you like, as a manager. And I think there are plenty of those. But ultimately, the problems at Manchester United stem from the very top. The incompetence runs from the top and seeps down through the cracks and into the different parts of the club. But that goes all the way down to the players as well. And I'm not defending Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because I think I've called him a PE teacher in the past. I've said that he was someone who was just happy to be there, that he was someone that should never have got the job in the first place. But ultimately, I think the players have sold him down the river here as well. I mean, you look at people like Harry Maguire, for example, someone that you've invested £80 million in, and his performances are nothing short of shambolic. They're embarrassing. They're subpar, and there's no getting away from that. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, not only did he show and prove that he wasn't up to the task and wasn't up to the level required to manage a club of Manchester United's quality or size, I think the players also showed that a lot of them don't deserve to be at a club of Manchester United's size as well. I don't think, as Nicomo says in the chat, and I completely agree with this, I don't think that the side is as strong as people made it out to be. You know, you look at the front line of Cristiano Ronaldo, Mason Greenwood, Rashford, Sancho, etc., the options that they have there, Bruno Fernandes just in behind, and you'd say they have as good options as anybody in those particular areas. But from the goalkeeper, who actually has performed quite well lately, David De Gea, you look at the defense. I think the defense is distinctly average, and I think the center of their midfield is distinctly average as well. So people hyping up, you know, people hyping up Manchester United at the start of the season, I think, were misinformed. I think they were almost blinded by the signing of Cristiano Ronaldo. They felt that that was going to elevate United to another level. And actually, probably the Ronaldo signing has been counterproductive. Now, I've said that, you know, where would they be without him? And I stick by that. But I think, although he brings a lot to the table, Cristiano Ronaldo, what he does is he changes the way you're playing. And I think Paul Merson made some really interesting comments about this just yesterday. And you know, I don't always agree with Paul Merson, but I thought he was quite spot on here. He talked about Solskjaer having developed a way of playing, having taken the shackles of certain players, and having, you know, had a plan, only for Cristiano Ronaldo to come in and that plan change, you know, and that almost need to include Cristiano Ronaldo has probably stopped other players getting opportunities and has changed the way in which Manchester United build up. And as a result, they look a very average side. Not to say Ronaldo's a bad player, but we saw it at Juventus as well. You know, we saw Cristiano Ronaldo become the focal point of everything that Juve did. And as a result, other players were suffering and the team was suffering. You know, they're not doing much better at the moment, but, you know, it was a transition that needed to happen. They needed to move him on, and they've done that now. And I think in time you'll see that at United, it might not have been the wisest idea bringing him back. You know, the heart ruled over their heads. Didn't want to see him join Manchester City. But are we going to see over the course of the campaign that actually they were probably wrong to do that? I don't know. But the last thing I'll say on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was that exit interview. What on earth was that? Look, some Man United fans, some of my colleagues over at 90 Min have told me that they liked it, that they enjoyed it, and that they don't care what people think about it, because ultimately it was something that was done for the Manchester United fan base. But for me, it was just classic PR. It was the club trying to spin the idea that actually they were right to put Ole in charge in the first place, to almost preempt success under a future manager and be able to look back at it and say it's because of what Ole did. Look, Ole did some good things. I think it's possible to say a manager needed to be sacked and wasn't the man to take the team any further, but also acknowledge the positives. And I think the positives were that he did create a better environment in some ways. But in creating that better environment, in taking the shackles off some players, did he almost give up too much power to the dressing room in doing that? I wonder. And I think that's where you need the balance between being somebody who allows people to express themselves, but also you need to maintain control of that dressing room. And once it's gone, it's gone. And I think it looks like that happened towards the end of Ole's tenure. I think that there was a lack of trust in his methods, a lack of trust in the way he was coaching the side. And I think ultimately that led to people maybe switching off, the performance is dipping, and then in the end, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer being given his marching orders. But the question is, who is going to come in and replace him? Mauricio Pochettino has been linked. Brendan Rodgers has been linked. Zinedine Zidane is said to not fancy the job, was the latest I read at the time of recording. But, look, I think for Man United now, and long may they crash and burn, but, I think Mauricio Pochettino feels like a good fit. He feels like a long-term fit. And Manchester United are quite similar to Arsenal in the sense that I don't think they look at managers as someone who's going to come in and do the job for 18 months and then leave. I think they look at they try at least to look at the bigger picture. Is that always the way to go? We've seen at Arsenal that sometimes it isn't. Is it necessarily right to put stopgap managers in? We've also seen that doesn't always work as well. So I think you need to find the balance. I think Mauricio Pochettino is someone that would be the ideal fit. The problem is he's at PSG, and are PSG going to allow him to leave? They're not a club that are desperate for money. They're not a club that are going to be bullied by Manchester United from a financial point of view. But from what we understand, Mauricio Pochettino is keen on taking the job, and is keen on taking the job now, not at the end of the season, now, which seems bizarre to me because he's miles ahead at the top of the French league. He's on course to win his first league title. He has a shout for winning the Champions League, which I don't think he would have at Manchester United. I think, well, no, that's unfair. He has a shout. He has a chance. It's a cup competition, but I think PSG are better equipped to win the Champions League. I find it strange that he would make that move now. I know there's a lot of talk around his family being in England and that might play a part, in him wanting to come back to the UK, etc., etc. But it just seems a bizarre one for me. Poch to walk out of PSG mid-season, I don't know. That doesn't quite sit right with me. The other person who's been linked very, very heavily, and when I looked at some odds early yesterday, was the favourite. It's Brendan Rodgers, and I've made my feelings clear on Brendan Rodgers numerous times. I don't think he's good enough for a club of that size. I think you've seen a huge drop-off at Leicester City at the moment, which we'll come on to talk about in a bit. But, I don't think he's done. I'm not going to say he's not done enough in the past, because I think he's had two very, very good seasons with Leicester. But as somebody pointed out in the chat, I think it was Sam, two notorious bottle jobs. They're two managers who up until now have shown that they're not quite able to get over the line. And I know that can be unfair and it can be a harsh criticism to label at people because, of course, you're relying on such fine margins at top level football. Do you get to a final and then get done by a bad refereeing decision? Do you lose players at crucial moments? There are a lot of factors and circumstances that are out of the manager's control that can ultimately lead to you failing to get over the line. And so I've got some sympathy for Poch and Rodgers in that sense. But, what Man United can't do here and shouldn't do, and I don't think the fans will accept it anyway, is appoint. They've put an interim in Michael Carrick. Are they now going to put an interim in to cover the interim until the summer, which is what some people are suggesting? That just seems like madness to me. Break the bank, do what you got to do, use your power as a football club of Manchester United size and bully your way into getting what you want. Get your team back on track. Give the manager the opportunity to get Manchester United back into the Champions League, because that is not impossible. You look at the Premier League table now, a lot has been made of United's position. They're eighth at the moment. They're on 17 points. They're only 6 points off of West Ham in fourth. They could easily wrestle that back. I don't expect West Ham to be in fourth come the end of the season. And United are more than capable of going on a run. So hope is not lost, but you need to get someone who's going to come in and make a difference immediately. It baffles me that Michael Carrick is still in the job. I mean, I would have sacked a lot of them. I'd have sacked all of the staff. I don't see how keeping someone who's said himself that his tactical ideas and that his coaching ideas are very similar to those of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to turn this around. It just feels like a nonsense to me. It feels like Manchester United have just, reeks of incompetence at the moment. The people at the top have pulled the trigger on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer without having an alternative lined up. They should have had an alternative lined up weeks ago and pulled the trigger then. They didn't. Now they've come to pull the trigger. You thought maybe they were trying to buy themselves a little bit more time to get something set. They've pulled the trigger and they don't have anything set, which just, as I say, I keep saying this phrase, screams of incompetence. It's really, really poor from Manchester United. And if I was a fan, I'd be absolutely livid, but I'm not. So long may it continue. Let's talk about some of the other Premier League action over the weekend. I realize I probably would have been better off doing this episode yesterday, but as always with work, sometimes stuff gets in the way. Sometimes things happen. And I don't always get the opportunity to cover all the bases that I'd like to. But we're not going to talk anymore about Liverpool 4, Arsenal 0. How many times are we going to go over it? It was painful. It was difficult to watch. It's not derailed or destroyed my enthusiasm about this team and where I feel this team is headed. So I'm not going to read into it too much. And I feel still quite positive about the project at Arsenal at this moment in time, but it was a difficult one to stomach, and I know that a lot of fans who were maybe leaning towards concerns over Mikel Arteta and what he's doing will use it as a stick to beat us with and to beat the current crop with. For me, people have called it a reality check. I think that's exactly what it was for some. But I think if you were realistic about where Arsenal were, then it wasn't a reality check. It's what was expected. And that's the key point here, right? If you thought that Arsenal were ready to compete with the likes of Liverpool, Manchester City, and Chelsea, then you needed that reality check. And there you go. It was provided to you on Saturday evening. But if I think you're sensible enough to understand where Arsenal are at, actually, it isn't that big of a surprise. Actually, when you capitulate after a second goal because you're trying to open up a little bit, that can happen. And it shouldn't be read into too much, in my opinion, anyway. But I know a lot of you disagree with me on this. I know a lot of you have been in the comments. Making your feelings known. Let's talk about some of the other games. Let's start with Leicester versus Chelsea. That was the early kickoff on Saturday. Chelsea just relentless. They're an absolute machine under Thomas Tuchel. And people talk about the flair that City have and the rock and roll football that Liverpool play. Chelsea are none of those things. They're just efficient. They're defensively very, very solid. And that's a great foundation from which they can go on and win football matches. They have quality in the final third, as we saw, whether it's Kai Havertz, whether it's Mason Mount, whether it's Callum Hudson-Odoi, who had a really, really good game at the weekend. They've got talent in an abundance, and they're going to be very, very difficult, to stop this season. They're setting the pace at the top of the league. And I think although Leicester have been quite poor this season, as we were touching on a little bit earlier on, it's a place that Arsenal went and won at. I think this was a bit of a statement win for Chelsea. Early kickoff away from home against a side who narrowly missed out on the Champions League last season. It can be a bit dodgy, but Chelsea showed no signs of letting up and were incredibly dominant and incredibly impressive on the day. Aston Villa beat Brighton by 2-0. Steven Gerrard getting his first win as Aston Villa boss in his first game. They left it late. Really good goal from Ollie Watkins was what set them off. And then I think it was Tyrone Mings who got the second, which sealed the points for Steven Gerrard's men, who incidentally has banned salt. So Conte's banning ketchup, Gerrard's banning salt, just bans left, right and centre at the moment. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how Steven Gerrard gets on in this job, because he was being hailed as the real deal at Rangers. And I always find it really difficult to, to make judgments on managers when they're in that league, because I think it is a 2-team league. I commentated on Rangers' I almost said FA Cup, Scottish League Cup semi-final with Hibernian on Sunday. They lost 3-1. First game without Stevie G and a defeat straight away, and a quite appalling and embarrassing one as well. Hibernian racing into a 3-goal lead inside about 40 minutes. Rangers pull one back on the stroke of half time, but weren't able to find a way back into the game. So, they suffered without him, at least initially anyway. But yeah, I'm as I say, I'm really interested to see how Gerrard's going to get on because he's got a decent squad at Aston Villa. They were clearly underachieving. They lost 5 on the spin. It led to Dean Smith getting sacked, and now they have a manager who's very highly rated. Can he get a tune out of this group? We're going to see. We're going to see. Burnley 3, Crystal Palace 3. This was an unexpected corker because when you think about Burnley, you think of Sean Dyche ball, you think of long ball football, staying defensively tight. When you think of Crystal Palace, I don't know about you, I love Patrick Vieira, but I still think of Roy Hodgson's Crystal Palace, who were quite pragmatic, quite defensive. And I expected this one to be a very low scoring fixture, only to be shocked that it was a 3-3. And I think what you're seeing is Crystal Palace being a lot more open and expansive in their play under Patrick Vieira. Christian Benteke finding form again, which is something I never thought I'd see. Scoring goals. Burnley have added a little bit more to their game in an attacking sense. I think the signing of Maxwell Cornet has been massive in that. I think I heard Adrian Clark say it on the Totally Football show yesterday, and I think he absolutely nailed it. Maxwell Cornet scores goals that Burnley wouldn't ordinarily score, which adds to their locker. We know they're going to get balls into the box. We know Chris Wood and Barnes and Vidra and all those guys are normally in and around that area and making things happen. But Maxwell Cornet scores spectacular goals and scores goals that we didn't expect or we don't expect or we haven't become accustomed to seeing from Burnley. And that makes all the difference. I think he's been an incredible signing so far. I was surprised he went there, to be honest. But he has gone there and he's done very, very well. Newcastle 3, Brentford 3. Already the Eddie Howe effect taking place, taking shape because Newcastle were much more entertaining to watch in an attacking sense. They really took the game to Brentford. They scored goals. They created chances. Alan St. Maximin was fantastic as always. Brentford, we know they can score goals. We know they can also switch it up, be quite direct, be quite functional. 3-3 draw was probably a fair result in the end. I think Brentford will feel that they probably slightly edged it and deserved to come away with more than a point, but still a good point on the road for Thomas Frank's side. Eddie Howe not at the game, of course, because he is currently isolating, having contracted coronavirus. But you could certainly see that despite him not being physically at St. James's Park, that there was some input, there was some influence, that whatever's been going on the training ground is obviously rubbing off on the players. Norwich 2, Southampton 1, another victory for the Canaries. Of course, Daniel Farke picked up his first victory and then ended up getting sacked immediately after, replaced with sacked Villa boss Dean Smith. And Dean Smith deserves a bit of praise here because he came in to this job, I think, 5 days after he lost the Villa job. Didn't take any time out, didn't take a break. The opportunity presented itself. He grabbed it and he made some pretty bold decisions with regards to Norwich's team selection. Decisions that maybe you or I would make based on what we've seen from Norwich and what we know of Norwich. Cantwell, Gilmore coming into the side. I would have had both of those in my side, but they weren't in the side prior. And interesting that Dean Smith came in and made those changes. And Norwich City showed some character to come from behind and win this one 2-1. It's a second. It's a second victory on the spin and just signs of life still at Carrow Road. Who knows? Moving on, Watford 4, Manchester United 1. Well, we all know the outcome of that, and that was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer being given his marching orders by Manchester United. Watford, brilliant. Claudio Ranieri, I said it to Jakey when we did a show over on 90 Min recently. We talked about, how Claudio Ranieri is capable of pulling results out of the bag like this. He is capable of making the unthinkable happen. He's that good at preparing game plans and preparing, ways of trying to stop people, nullifying opponents. But not only did they nullify Manchester United, they really took the game to them. And, Josh King, fantastic again. Emmanuel Dennis, who's been an absolute revelation. And Ismail Assar, although he missed from the penalty spot, is still a handful. So really good front three that Watford have there and a good core in the middle. Cleverly and Sissoko were pretty good as well. Ben Foster had a good game in goal. So I think, that Watford have enough to survive. And I think with Claudio Ranieri at the helm, they probably will do that now. Moving on to the final game I want to touch on from Saturday. Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, West Ham United 0. And look, Wolves are just not getting enough credit this season. Bruno Lage has gone in there and done a wonderful job. People were talking about things getting a bit stale. At Wolverhampton Wanderers with Nuno Espirito Santo, that their football wasn't particularly attractive, that it was boring, that it was dull. In comes Bruno Lage. He's made a few additions to the side. Raul Jimenez is back in the side, which I think is huge. It's made the world of difference to them having a really strong and capable and competent centre forward. Juan, who's come in, has been really, really positive. Trincão's looked good when he's played. Podence came into the side at the weekend. I think he'd only started once previously, but he came into the team and gave a really, really good account of himself, as he always seems to do. But yeah, what I like about Wolves is the style of play. I'm really, really enjoying watching them this season. They take the game to teams. They're not afraid of anybody. And look, West Ham have been flying this season. West Ham have been punching above their weight for a little while now under David Moyes, and it would have been quite easy for Wolves to almost go into their shell a little bit against an opponent that many people felt were the favourites. But Wolves have been brilliant, as I keep saying, and I'm a massive fan of Bruno Lage and the job he has done there. And hopefully for them, it continues, because really, really good signs. That rounds up Saturday's action. Moving on to Sunday, Manchester City, comfortable winners over Everton. I'll tell you what, Rafa Benitez is struggling. You look at that Everton side. I know they've got injuries. I know they're without some players, but they haven't won in their last 5 in the Premier League. They've lost 4 of them and drawn just 1 of those 5 fixtures. It's already 5 defeats from the 12, 3 draws, just the 4 wins. They've slipped down to 11th place in the division. And I think, Rafa Benitez was someone who comes in, obviously, with a good reputation based on what he's done previously. There were question marks about his Liverpool connections. Would that be accepted? Well, it would have been accepted if indeed Rafa Benitez was picking up results. But the fact he's not picking up results, and the fact his team are performing so poorly, means that people are constantly going to look at that, right? They're constantly going to highlight the fact that he is a Liverpool man, that he does have a strong connection with Everton's City rivals. And I'm not sure how much longer Rafa Benitez is going to get away with this. I'm not sure how much longer this is going to last before Everton pull the trigger. They're a very ambitious club. They're looking to build a stadium. They haven't shied away from investing money in recent seasons. Are they going to accept what Rafa Benitez and his side are currently producing? I'm not sure that they will. He's having a difficult time, and he needs to turn it around fast. Manchester City, as relentless as always, incredibly good side, really talented group. The pass from João Cancelo was the highlight for me, even more so than Rodgers' absolute thunderbolt of a strike, which ended up in the top corner. Great goal. That was fantastic. But that pass from João Cancelo, absolutely sublime. Moving on, the final game of the weekend was Spurs' 2-1 victory over Leeds United. I've made a bit of fun of Spurs over the last couple of days because I thought that the celebrations, considering they'd narrowly beaten a relegation-threatened team with half their players missing at home after a really abysmal first half showing, I thought the celebrations were over the top. Spurs fans tell me they love it. They tell me they love the energy, etc., that Antonio Conte brings to the table. I said it before and I'll say it again. The hiring of Antonio Conte alone is not enough to elevate Spurs to the level that they need to be at. It's the first move and the right move to bring in a manager of that caliber. But if Tottenham don't back him up in the transfer market, then it means nothing. And Tottenham have notoriously not backed managers in the transfer market as much as they should in the eyes of their supporters, especially. Conte, notorious for falling out with clubs, for not accepting when he's told by ownership that he can't have what he wants. So I'm interested to see how this is going to work out. We all knew that the Mourinho thing was going to end in tears. It did. And I wouldn't be surprised if Conte's reign ended in a similar fashion. The only question is he good enough? Is the squad good enough for him to achieve something prior to that unraveling? And that's what we're going to have to wait and find out. So those were the results from this weekend of Premier League action, and my brief thoughts on some of those fixtures. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the like button on the video. I've only got 30 likes on the board at the moment. Would love to get that at least up to 50 by the time we wrap up the show. Just a quick reminder of how you can enter our competition. We are giving away not one but 2 Arsenal shirts of your choice. The 3rd year anniversary of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast is coming up in January. And to say thank you, I wanted to give away a couple of Arsenal shirts of your choice. Of course, that means you can select from the home one, from the away one, and from the 3rd shirt. We're going to pick a couple of winners. One of our guests is going to pick out a couple of winners at random on the 3rd of December. So looking forward to doing that, and then I'll get in touch with those who have won so that we can get your size and get your choice, and we'll get those sent out to you directly delivered from the club as soon as possible. So to enter the competition, you need to head over to Twitter, check out our pinned tweet at Chronicles_AFC. You need to retweet the tweet. You need to subscribe to this YouTube channel. There's a link there that you can click on that will take you straight there. And you need to, once you've done that, so that's follow us, retweet the tweet, and subscribe to the channel, you need to reply done below in the comments. And as I say, we'll be picking out 2 random winners to be giving away Arsenal shirts to. Please get involved. Spread the word. Well, I don't know if you'll want to spread the word, because the more people in, the less the chances of you winning. But you have to retweet it to get into the competition. So, yeah, whether you want to spread the word or not, you bloody have to. If you are a member of the channel and you don't have Twitter, I do realize there are a few of you that don't have Twitter, then please email me at chroniclesafc@gmail.com. and I will enter you into the competition. So it's chroniclesafc@gmail.com. That's the email address. Email me just saying that you'd like to enter the competition, and we will, of course, include you as well. I realize not a lot of people, I realize a lot of people don't want to be on Twitter, as you know, I know most of us are, but there are people that find it a bit of a pain in the ass. You know what I could do with deactivating it, but it's so important for my work that I probably can't. But I understand why people are maybe not so keen on spending so much time scrolling through absolute nonsense on a daily basis. So as I say, if you don't have Twitter, email me chroniclesafc@gmail.com, and yeah, we'll enter you in the competition. Otherwise, do exactly what it says in the tweet, get involved, and I'd love to see who wins, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you a couple of Arsenal shirts right ahead of Christmas. That's going to be that for this edition of the podcast. Make sure you hit the like button on YouTube if you're watching us there. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. Make sure you leave us a review if you're listening via the audio platforms. I'll be back very, very soon with more content. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Goodbye.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast. I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.